And hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Jake Hicks Show. And today we don't have a candidate on. We have the first vice chair of the Alabama Democratic Party on to talk about the Alabama Democratic Party and how people can get involved. Miss Tabitha Isner is joining us. Thank you, Tabitha.
Yes. And it's Eisner. Like, look me in your eyes and tell me.
Eisner, sorry.
Eisner. Mhm.
So Tabitha, tell us a little about your background and what your responsibilities are as first vice chair of the Alabama Democratic Party.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me, Jake. It's good to be here. Um, yeah, my background is that I grew up in the church. My mom is from a young age, we always went to church, and she made that an important part of her career life. She wasn't a like a seminary trained minister, but she chose to work for the church and made it clear to us as children that like that was the centerpiece of our lives. And we always went to very progressive churches. I didn't know to call them progressive churches when I was a kid. To me, they were just Jesus churches. But we served homeless folks, and the gay men's chorus sang once a month on Sunday mornings, and we were doing our best to love our neighbors and take care of one another. And I really credit that upbringing with making me the Democrat, the progressive that I am today. To me, that was really attributable to my religious background. So professionally, I ended up doing a master's of divinity and master's of public policy because I wanted to be doing ministry and serving people, but I also knew that I wanted to do that by working for justice in the world. So my intention was always to do faith-based advocacy work. And I fell in love with policy stuff and got much nerdier than I expected to on that front. And I love the nitty gritty of that. And I love statistics and economics. So my career then ended up focusing mostly on early childhood policy, childcare, Head Start, pre-K. But I have throughout remained involved in politics and in justice advocacy work. So I ended up running for office in 2018 in Alabama's second congressional district before the map was redrawn. Um, we all saw that it was coming, that the second congressional district was likely to become a Democratic winnable district in redistricting. And I knew that we needed to till the soil if we were going to be ready to win a newly available congressional district. So I jumped in and ran back in 2018 and had a great experience doing that. And then part of what I realized when I was running was that it's hard to be a candidate. Nobody's telling you how it works. Nobody's showing you the ropes. So I ended up getting involved in state party politics and wanting to make sure that the state party is a force that is helping candidates to understand how the process works, facilitating an easier process for candidates. So, as first vice chair, what that means is that there are multiple vice chairs, and I'm the highest ranking. I'm the first vice chair. So that means that if something were to happen to the chair, it would be my job to step in and call a meeting in order to have a new election. And there aren't much like being vice president. There are not responsibilities explicitly outlined. It's sort of whatever portfolio of things the chair gives you to work on. And the chair didn't give me a portfolio. So I have kind of made my own portfolio and really focused on recruiting candidates, supporting candidates, and making sure that folks understand what the state party does and doesn't do.
That's one of the things, getting involved in Democratic politics over the past few months has been really eye-opening to me is the difference between all the different branches of the party. I have a master's in politics, so I was vaguely aware of it, but just the massive amount of differences was very eye-opening. to me. And you were talking about your background in religion. I'm not religious myself, but I had a friend of mine who is a religious person and a Democrat, and he was going to be officiating a wedding. And he said, he said, I might make some people mad because I'm going to talk about real Jesus, not Republican Jesus. So that is a true statement. I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Speaking of the party, if listeners wanted to get involved, how can they reach out to their local party and get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, there are lots of different forms of the party. So the state party, it has a website at aldemocrats.org. And on that site, if you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, you can see a map of the state and a listing for each of the counties, each of the 67 counties in Alabama, and who the chair is, and some contact information. Um, so that's a great way to get started, is to try to find your county executive committee. But if I can expand a little bit on what kind of the structure of the party. So the state party really is those officers, and it's governed by a statewide committee of 250 people, more or less. Um, and but it has a staff of maybe 4 people. That varies a little bit over time, but it's not a big staff. A lot of the work happens at the county party level, and those county parties each have their own committee, and those people are elected on your primary ballot. So, uh, or at least they should be elected on your primary ballot. Sometimes that's not how it goes down because people aren't engaged enough to run for those seats. But if you're interested in being involved in your state party, in your county party, you don't have to be elected to do so. And in addition to those county bodies, there are also clubs, there are Democrat adjacent groups. So, 5051 and Indivisible, and lots of other groups that, are nonpartisan, perhaps in the sense that they aren't strictly affiliated with the Democratic Party, but are great ways to get involved. So if your local party isn't active, if you look on that aldemocrats.org website and you don't find a great answer, feel free to reach out to me on social media. I'm on pretty much all the platforms, and I can help you find a local club or group that you can be involved in. And all roads are leading to the same anti-fascist, pro-democracy endpoint. So wherever you want to get involved is great.
And like Tabitha said, there are great county organizations across the state, great club organizations. I'm in the northern part of the state, northeast, so I'm in Jackson County, very involved in Jackson County. I attend Marshall County's meetings all the time. Susan McKinney runs a great organization there in Marshall County, and we in Jackson County are a growing group as well. So listeners and watchers, there are multiple ways to get involved and reach out to people. Our local parties reporting an increased engagement. I know at our meetings in Jackson County, every time we've had a meeting this time, it's been 40 to 50 people at our meetings in a county that Trump won by 70%. Are we seeing similar reports of engagement across the state?
Yeah, it's not monolithic. Lots of variation across the state, but we do see yeah, there are quite a few counties that are having kind of a resurgence. And it's much like in 2016, when Trump first came on the scene and people recognized the threat that he poses to our democracy, and that really motivated people. So we saw probably our strongest slate of candidates in 2018. We had a very strong slate of candidates then in response to Trump having been elected in 2016. That was just such a wake up call to people that you've got to get involved and fight back. And I think we're going to see the same thing in 2026. That, people assumed we were okay because Joe Biden won, and so Trump was going to go away. And now that Trump is back, I think that has motivated people to get back involved in democratic politics again. Um, so so but I will say it's not always. I think people often assume that it's going to be in the bluest areas, that it's going to be, Montgomery and Birmingham and Huntsville and Mobile that would be the big cities that would have the biggest resurgences. But that's often not what we see. We see that smaller counties or redder, more rural counties are seeing more change in activity than the blue counties, and that is largely because folks who are in red counties are feeling it more intensely than folks who are in urban settings. Contrary to what Tuberville says, the SNAP usage is higher in rural areas than it is in urban areas, and the folks who are feeling the impact of Trump's policies are often in the reddest areas and are very motivated. So yeah, we're seeing great activity. Another example would be Coffee County. So that's the town there is Enterprise, Alabama, in the Wiregrass, and they have a booming group. And there are several other examples, but yeah, it's exciting to see that energy flowing through the party.
I think one of the things is, with your rural counties that are overwhelmingly red, is you really have to watch where you speak about politics. So it feels good to be in a group with like-minded individuals and share your actual opinions and not be so on guard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that has allowed people to really get involved. Speaking of future promise, you talked about that earlier. What area of the state is showing the greatest area of future success?
Yeah. So we are seeing the most opportunities for sort of shifts in the Huntsville, Madison, Northeast area of Alabama. And also, I would say in like Baldwin County, Mobile area. Um, so those are in part because of demographic shifts. But not exclusively because of that. When there is good activity, we see more progress. So I think Baldwin is an example where it's a pretty white, overwhelmingly white, and typically red place. There's not demographic shifts that would indicate that we would expect to see big changes there. But there is kind of a cultural shift happening. And, you know, a lot of credit goes to the Democrats there who are making good decisions and being strategic about how they get the message out. So even in places where it feels impossible, having a good message and having ways to reach out to your neighbors and make connections and build alliances is anything is possible, even in places like Walker County, very, very red place. And they have seen some good engagement because folks have been doing the kind of work that is able to reach across the aisle and build some new alliances.
Talking about Huntsville area, obviously I live in the county adjacent to Madison County. And the proudest vote I ever cast in a ballot box was in December of 2017 for Doug Jones. I had voted Republican in most elections up to that point, and this was when I began to move over to the Democratic side, partly due to Trump's response to Charlottesville, his comments about the widow of the slain soldier who he told her he knew what he was getting into and, disrespected that soldier's memory, and Trump standing behind Roy Moore. I just could not wrap my head around that. And on election night, watching those returns, when I saw that Doug Jones had won Madison County, that's how I knew he was going to win that election. So to see the change in Madison that we're seeing, to me, is just amazing. And with the future growth in Madison, I think Madison's going to become a reliably blue county in the very near future. and the demographics, the college educated voters that are moving into the district, it's going to be a rich source of votes. Who
And
are,
can
yeah,
I add to that as well? I think um, it is hard sometimes to feel like we're seeing progress because the maps are gerrymandered, such that like districts are set up to be solidly blue or solidly red. That's how they drew the map. And so when shifts are happening, oftentimes it's not visible because it doesn't result in the map changing. So every 10 years is when we see a map change. And even then, they're going to try to make sure that we still have the same number of reliably red seats and reliably blue seats. So I think sometimes it can be discouraging to feel like I see my community changing around me. It feels like it's getting bluer. It feels like something exciting is happening. Why aren't we seeing in the electoral results? And so that's important to know that like that's by design from the people in power trying to make sure that even as we're making progress in changing my hearts and minds, that we're not able to make progress electorally. So um, keep your chin up, and we'll get some more seats with each census and redistricting process that happens. But it's also a reason why we need to get rid of the partisan gerrymandering that happens. And I'm a big supporter of a constitutional amendment to end that kind of gerrymandering. And I think getting educated about how those things happen and how they're hurting our country and our democracy as a whole is really important.
yes, the gerrymandering is so precise now, they can do it down to the street level.
Mhm.
And MSNBC did a special on it a few years ago about how a member of a state legislature had basically boxed out someone he knew was going to be a primary challenger by drawing a district line around that person's apartment complex.
Yep.
So it is so pernicious, and both sides engage in it.
Yeah.
So, so that is true. Speaking of future success, who are some of the up and coming stars in the Alabama Democratic Party?
Great question. I think it is, I always want to be careful because I support all of our candidates. And in my mind, everybody is an up and coming star. So one thing that I want to say is Alabama has a long tradition of people running and losing before they run and win. So um, I think that it's like 85% of governors of Alabama lost when they first ran for governor. Like it is tradition that you lose once and then run again. So want to name the fact that like there are really amazing people out there who have lost elections who I would still say are rising stars. Because again, the gerrymandering means that there are not very many winnable seats. The winnable seats are typically already held by Democrats. So there are incredible people who are stepping up and running for seats, knowing that it's going to be unlikely that they'll win, at least the first time. But they're sowing the soil, they're tilling the soil for somebody else to run, or they're building their name recognition to run. So Mallory Hagan is a great example. She ran in the 3rd congressional district, and then she ran for a state house seat in Madison, and she lost both of those races. But she's a great example of someone who like she's very influential and doing great work. And we don't run only to win. There are other great reasons to run. Andrew Sneed is another example. First time candidate, has raised $250,000 already. And he's running in the 5th congressional district. So I think that's one to keep an eye on. But also grateful for people like Will Boyd who have run several times, but continue to up their game and perform better each time. Lots of great candidates. I don't want to leave anybody out. There are dozens and dozens who are running. Excited about Mandy Ledkins. She's brought in a younger demographic. Um, but lots of good candidates out there, and we'll see what happens come the fall.
So I was completing my degree at JSU in 2018 when Mallory ran against Mike Rogers. I was a commuter student, but I saw that she had an active campaign, that she was out there trying to get it. And I was well aware of the fact that she was up against a mountain running against Mike Rogers. But Mike Rogers didn't have any visible campaign.
Mhm.
And Mallory was out there doing the work of it. And I think a lot of voters respected that fact that she was out there actively courting their support and that Rogers was just riding that straight ticket support back to office. So, and she got like 39 to 40% of the vote in that race. So that's showing that there are Democrats in that area and that, we can win these races. And also, sometimes, like you said, we don't run to win. We run to help other candidates. Walt Maddox got 40% statewide. And I think a lot of that was due to us having strong congressional candidates across the state. And that lifted him up in addition to Walt being a great candidate himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are,
Um, so yeah, just to piggyback on that, yeah, I ran in 2018 with Walton and Mallory, and I Mallory and I both raised about the same amount of money, a little over $500,000. And, you know, it was there haven't been very many congressional candidates, Democratic congressional candidates in Alabama who have hit the 500,000 mark. And we had three that year who hit that mark, in addition to the incumbent Terry Sewell, of course. But we ran real campaigns. We had real ads on TV and radio. We had, real materials. And we had volunteers who were out knocking doors in places where doors hadn't been knocked in a long time, where people said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe a Democrat is at my door." When has that ever happened before? And that the effect on people was very real. I only got 37% of the vote, I think it was. But afterwards, for years afterwards, people have said to me, "You came so close, Tabitha. You almost won." Now, mathematically, no, it didn't. It didn't almost win, mathematically. But in terms of how people felt like I have a real candidate who was running a real race and putting that Republican in a position where they have to answer some questions or at least feel a little bit nervous. And that feeling is so important. So when I was running, I had there were 15 counties that I was in my district, and at the time that my campaign started, only three of those counties were organized and having regular meetings. Three out of the 15 had regular Democratic meetings. So our goal for as a campaign was to at least double that, ideally triple it. So we wanted to make sure that, like, by the time election day came around, there were at least 6, if not 9 counties of the 15 who were having regular meetings. And that's really important. Like, if we're ever going to be able to win in those areas, we need to have a functioning Democratic Party in those areas. My campaign gave people something to do, a reason to get together and have a meeting, which they often felt like they didn't have a reason to meet. Something to do together. They could knock doors, they could put up flyers, they could, have a speaker come and talk about the campaign. So we were successful in meeting the goal, which was to double or triple the number of counties that were meeting. And we tripled it. We got up to 9 that were meeting regularly by the end of that campaign. So did I almost win? Is really a matter of perspective. Like, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in that race. And it changed the area. change the area for the better and help the people there feel like there was something worth fighting for. And I couldn't be prouder of that. And the same is true for Mallory, that people were really proud and inspired to be Democrats when they had a good candidate to vote for.
That is so true. And to all the candidates have put their name forward in this election, like you said, up in the third or up in the fifth, you've got Andrew, you've got Jeremy, you've got Candace, all great candidates putting their name forward. In the third, you got Lee McGinnis. In the fourth, which is God bless Shane and Amanda
Yeah.
running in the reddest of red districts in the country, trying to make the world a better place. They're tremendous people, and you've got Clyde Jones down in the first, and you've got a couple candidates, I believe, in the sixth. Uh,
Elizabeth Anderson, I believe.
yes, and and in you got Terry and Miss Representative Figures, who are laying the groundwork, like you said, for great things. And all of those candidates are just tremendous people and incredibly brave because
Yeah.
it's a huge personal sacrifice to put your name forward.
Yeah. It means typically it means quitting your job. Not always, but if you want to do it well, it means quitting your job for a year. It means, not being home with your family. These are all very, well, maybe a couple exceptions. These are very large districts. Mine was 10,000 square miles. So like that's a lot of miles to put on your car and to be away from home. It's an incredible sacrifice that people make. And this year we have a candidate in every single congressional district. We have a Democrat running. Most of them will have a primary. That's wonderful for increasing engagement and activity. We have several Senate candidates. We have, candidates for the statewide offices. We're trying to make sure we have every single statewide office filled. So we're not quite there yet. So if someone still wants to run, let us know. And, trying to make sure that we're competing in the majority of legislative districts as well. So it's really going to be an exciting year. If that's the measure of engagement and excitement, I would say we are well above average right now.
Do you feel comfortable sharing what statewide offices we need candidates in?
Yes, I can do that. We have, let's see here. Judges are the biggest struggle for us because you have to be an attorney in order to run for those seats. So we have a Supreme Court seat, the one that's currently held by Judge Mendheim. So we're looking for someone to run against him. Court of Civil Appeals. We have a couple spots there, criminal appeals as well. Looking for someone to run for treasurer. So accountants out there who have some experience managing money. And we're looking for somebody to run as an auditor. Oh, and we have one other public service commission seat. So we have John Northrup is running for public service commission, but there are two public service commission seats that are open. Two of the three are open this year. So
So,
looking for folks to do those. Oh, and a state school board are not, that's not statewide exactly, but they are pretty large districts. So often more difficult to fill if you're passionate about education.
so if you are a educator or
Hmm.
an attorney or an accountant, please get in contact with the Alabama Democratic Party.
Yes.
We need you to run.
Yes.
Um,
Find Tabitha Isner on something. Some some
yeah,
platform, any platform. I'll get back to you.
yes. And speaking of that, you're very active on social media. How can we convince older members of the party in the value of social media to reach voters?
Yeah. I mean, I think the key is that different people are in different places, and we have to be everywhere if we're going to reach everyone. And we can't write off any portion of the population as not worth reaching. So I don't like Instagram, for example. Don't like it, don't get it, can't quite figure out how to be active on it. luckily, there are other people who are really good at that who are doing it. And we need to embrace that reality. I think we have a tendency to sort of feel like the thing that we use is the appropriate thing to be using. And instead of seeing like how wonderful is it that there's a group on Discord. For example, there's a group on Discord that's very active and doing stuff. Like Discord's not my thing, but I got familiar with it enough to understand who's there and make good connections and encourage them and tell them I think it's amazing what you're doing. The Reddit crowd, Twitter is very toxic right now for me, but I love that there are people who are still able to do that. So like find where you can be involved and stay involved. And then I think, the older crowd that's not involved on social media, that's important to remember that like we're not reaching them when we post on social media. And rather than, expecting that they're going to become TikTok users, they're not. We have to continue to find to use other mediums to reach people across the board. But I would like to see the future state leadership of the party be more convicted about having a broad swath of methodologies for reaching people and be investing in those. Currently, we're not breaking any records. We're not impressing anybody, I would say, with our communication strategies. We're making some progress, but we've still got a long way to go to be a powerhouse of communications. Which one example is op-ed pieces. So there are lots of people who still read newspapers, whether online or on paper, and we need folks to write opinion pieces. So I have received communication from some of the smaller papers that they want to have a more balanced opinion section, and they're asking for submissions. So I am actively recruiting people who'd be willing to write for their local newspaper and express the Democratic or left-leaning progressive position on issues. And that's a way that if you're not maybe into social media, don't like quick quips, but you do like writing and a little bit more long form. That's a great opportunity to get the message out there. And again, be in touch with me and I can help you find an outlet where you could get published.
And to my listeners, there are more options than Yellowhammer News, 1819 News, which are just Republican recycled talking points. And one of those sites isn't even worth visiting. Uh, there are places like AL Daily News, which is Kyle Searcy runs a great organization over there, and it is very good long form reporting. You got Alabama Reflector, an Alabama political reporter that have websites, AL.com, of course, and like Tabitha mentioned, your local papers. So please reach out and read your daily newspaper because what's going on in your daily local newspaper affects your life much more on a personal level than what is occurring in Washington, D.C.
You said I think you said Kyle Searcy. You meant Todd Stacy.
Todd,
Yes.
Todd Stacy.
Stacy, Alabama Daily News. Yeah. But also, like the local newspapers that might only publish weekly or only be online. So the Trustful Tribune, for example, they're committed to running something from the left perspective on a weekly basis. And but someone has to provide them with content. So we're doing that. But I would say the same thing for like, your the Dothan paper and the Andalusia paper and like Opelika, like find those local outlets and see if they'd be willing to accept you. And I'd be again happy to help facilitate some of those relationships.
Yes. Um, when will we be getting an announcement about the opening of qualifying for Democrats in Alabama?
Yes. Typically that comes in November, so soon. It will almost certainly be the first few weeks of January will be the qualifying period. And because there is state law that says for the two major parties, it has to be so many days before the primary that our qualifying has to close. So the exact dates have not been released yet, but we're all very confident that it's going to be the beginning of January. And I'm trying to remember the exact number of dates that it is, exact number of days, but I think it's like around January 20th that it will close.
That seems to be what I remember because the Republicans have already announced their
Yeah,
qualifying period.
yeah, yeah,
Um, it seems like January 24th or something of that nature, because the primary is on the 19th of May. And
yeah,
we need people, like I said, like Tabitha has mentioned, for those statewide positions, we need people to run in their local offices.
yeah,
Let's go out and have a full ticket and support good Democrats and have a good turnout in our primary. I believe only like 36 or 63,000 people voted in the runoff in 2022. It's a very, very low number. Um, and so we need people to get out there. Tabitha, thank you for coming on today. Thank you for speaking, and we'll be back later this week. We have we're in discussions to have Chad Chig Martin uh, as my second gubernatorial candidate on the podcast. We spoke to Dr. Boyd after a meeting in Jackson County. So we're looking forward to having more statewide candidates on to promote the message about great Democrats and so people can make their own decisions about what candidates to support. Until next time, I'll see you all then.